They say when a baby is born, so is a mother. But while you are there to help your baby grow into the person he or she is meant to be, who is there to help you? Many women feel lost and alone when they become mothers, wondering, who am I now? Sometimes it feels like the transformation from woman to mother is as radical as a caterpillar's transformation into a butterfly. Did you know that inside the chrysalis, the caterpillar literally turns into goop before it rearranges itself into a butterfly? This podcast is about the goop, what soul transformation looks like as you transition from being a woman to a mom. Your baby's growth matters, but yours does too. You're not alone. I'm your host, Brittany Ming. Welcome to the Motherhood Metamorphosis.
Welcome everyone to this episode of the Motherhood Metamorphosis. I'm your host, Brittany Ming, and today we're talking to Caitlin Voebel. Caitlin is a 33-year-old mom of four. Her husband of nearly 14 years is Air Force, and she spent all of her adulthood traveling and moving where the military sends them, creating life and connections in each place. While she has worked as a caregiver, dance instructor, and child care provider, her real and true calling is to be at home with her children. She's not a professional writer yet, but after her mother's passing, she created @Grief, Grace, and Waffles on Instagram as an outlet for processing grief, motherhood, and things in between. So welcome, Caitlin. I'm really happy that you're here on the podcast today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So we are actually going to be talking about grief today and losing your mom, which has kind of turned into your passion of sharing about her and sharing about your grief and motherhood on Instagram. And I was wondering if you could just start by telling us about your mom and the story of how she passed.
Okay, so to begin, we didn't have the typical, if you think of mother and daughter, we didn't have that typical relationship. She never braided my hair or wrote notes in my lunchbox. And most of my life, I didn't even primarily live with her. So I was born to two teenage parents who didn't go the long haul. And you can kind of assume, how those things went. My grandmother and my aunt, her sister, my mother's sister, did, a lot of helped a lot with raising me. And my mom just, it was complicated for a while. I guess there was a lot of, butting heads and opinions and things I didn't understand then, but now being a parent, I'm like, okay, yeah. None of it's easy. There's not a handbook for any of it. And so our relationship kind of ebbed and flowed over the years. Like, I remember I would be very excited, when she'd come to visit to see her. And then as I got to be a teenager, we would clash a lot. Because looking back now, like, she was growing and evolving just like we all are, like we think our parents are all knowing beings and they're just they're living for the first time too.
Yeah.
And that's hard I'm trying to explain that to my own kids right now. This is my first time on earth also.
I know. I've told my kids, I'm like my oldest, I'm like, you are the first teenagers I've ever had. So give me a little, I'm sorry, I'm doing my best here.
Yeah, and like you're all very different people. It's not like I did it one time so I could do it the exact same. So, but we'd inch a little closer. I remember trying to live with her in some of my teenage high school years, but we were just too much alike. And then we'd pull away again, and then, but I thought of this the other day. Like, I still remember her phone number that she had in like 2003, which, because sometimes I do have a little bit of guilt that I go back and forth with, but it's as silly as it sounds. I was like, if I remember her phone number, that means that she was always pretty important to me. Like, I have it still memorized, like 504-328-7598. And like, I could call it, I just knew that she was always there.
Mm-hmm.
She was always a source of comfort for me, as mothers are. I think that's just biological. But I really didn't understand her until I started having kids of my own. But isn't that how it always goes? I don't. But I always just knew she was there, and she tried her best. and her best is not the same as someone else's best.
Yeah.
Um, and so I do have a half brother. So she did have another child when I was 14 years old. So we are 14 years apart. Um, and so I had my first baby when I was 23, and Caleb was 10.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being so irritated that she just wasn't grandmotherly. Like, why can't she just be a grandmother? And now my son turns 10 next month, and I'm like, wow, she was still in the thick of it.
Yeah. You're like, she was like not done. She was like full
Yeah,
on parenting mode.
yeah. Like, I just remember being frustrated, but now I can look back, and it's as our kids age, the hard just gets different. It's a different type of hard.
Yeah.
Like right now, so my ages are, I have almost 10 and 8, and then I have 5 years between that, and then I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And I find myself at times like I just want to sit with the toddlers, even though that was the hardest part the first time around. But like, I don't know, you realize that every day is new to a 3-year-old, and
Yeah.
I can fix all of her problems with like applesauce and a hug. And no one tells you about third and fourth grade emotions and making friends, and like sometimes they hold grudges. They don't always wake up and the day is brand new. And so it's just a different type of hard. Well, so then I moved away, which is something else I deal with in therapy, because sometimes I feel like, well, what if I never moved away? What if I didn't do XYZ? Then maybe she'd still be here. But so I moved away when I was 20 years old to Washington State, and I visited home, like we all do, once a year probably. I always knew she was there. But we really were not super close until I was about until maybe I got to England.
Mm-hmm.
So before we moved to England, in 2019, like I said, my husband got there in March, and my kids and I spent 2 to 3 months home. I think my daughter was supposed to be a flower girl in one of my husband's nephew's wedding, and so we stayed there for it.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole time I was like, I want her to do this, and I know we're about to move away, but it's hard to live in limbo
Oh, for sure.
for
Yes.
so long with kids and not your own house, not your own stuff. Like, um, spending more than a month or two, like it's also hard because you're just like, I'm just gonna shop. Like, what do I even pack? Like, they're gonna grow out of everything. Um, so anyway, so we stayed, and looking back, my mom had a hysterectomy, I believe. And so she was with my grandmother where we were staying. She was staying there too, just to have some support. And in hindsight, that was like my kids got to spend the most time with her than they had in their entire lives, like mostly due to our military lifestyle. They were about 4 and 5 at the time. She babysat them for the first time. They played together. I remember the Easter that we spent there. Mine, I'm the oldest of my grandmother's grandchildren, and the boys were kind of teenagers now. So my kids were it. They were the babies. And I think she filled and hid like 75 Easter eggs just for my 2 kids on my grandpa's property in
That's so
Mississippi.
special.
Like she was so excited, and like she was finally like wanting to get into that role. And I just remember like she was so excited. She had found my daughter this like unicorn horn that, she wanted to give her. And it was also her birthday is April 11th. And I think Easter was around April that year. So, we did the whole birthday thing, and it was different than my entire life felt, and I think looking back, that was the biggest blessing that I could probably think of thus far.
Mm.
Because I didn't know that when I hugged her goodbye to fly away to another country, that was the last time that I would see her in the
Yeah.
flesh. But it was just nice to just coexist with her,
Mm-hmm.
because we hadn't been able to do that in so long. And so we moved, we kept in touch on WhatsApp. Mississippi Wi-Fi out there was kind of spotty, so we did FaceTime when we could. Um, But I felt like I had my mom. I remember posting on Facebook, like, I miss my mom. Um, this is a weird feeling, but it feels good.
Hmm.
I can't wait to get back and visit you guys, which was normally not like me because, I used to just shove things away, deal with them later.
Yeah.
So, um, so that whole year, all of 2019, and then COVID, she was just like my confidant. I found out I was having another baby the day after Christmas 2019, and she was the first person I told. Like for the first time, I was like, I gotta call my mom.
Mm.
When we picked out a name, she was the only person I told for the longest. I don't know how else to describe it, but it just felt good. My journey was a little bit tougher on me because there was a lot of well, at least you did that, or at least you had this, and it's like I know, but I wanted so much more of it, and like
And this
now
felt
it's
like more, it felt like normal, like the way it should be.
sort of,
Yeah.
yeah, because I mean everybody's got. I think every mother-daughter relationship is complicated and, you know, for lack of a better word, difficult at times, even if it's typical.
Hmm.
But it just was nice to just feel we didn't have the typical stuff when I was growing up, but like I feel like sometimes adult daughters and mothers are like friends,
Hmm.
or from what I see.
Yeah.
And I just was enjoying that part of it
Yeah.
for a little bit. But then, we had planned to go home for Christmas, and then COVID. We even rushed around and got the kids' passports. We were not going anywhere. The day after Valentine's Day, I think that was when things started ramping up in the US. And um, so, yeah, the rest of the year, it was a blur. And I think she was super COVID conscious um, because she just did have a lot of autoimmune issues. And so, she just kind of was anxious that whole year from what I remember. Um, so anyway, I just kind of floated through life like we all did in 2020. My daughter was born August 28th of 2020. And I was like, as a person who struggles with extreme anxiety and depression, I was on cloud nine. Like I was just in so much bliss. Like it was just even from another country, like the support I had there, my friends helping me with my older two, the support of a doula,
Hmm.
the support of all the wonderful photographers there, like Sarah helped me,
Yes.
even though my kids couldn't run into the hospital and meet their siblings, she helped me make those memories. Um, I was just
So
couldn't have been
happy.
happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and
And
just
so,
background, Caitlin and I had the same doula. We both lived in England. So this is we had the mutual friends and we actually both had the same doula and that was really special. So
yeah.
I just want to throw
Shout
that
out,
little
Mariah.
little
Love you.
yes, Mariah, if you're listening, we love you.
And she couldn't even come in my room. And I still value that experience so much. Like all she could do is get me to the hospital doors,
Yeah.
because things were still locked down. But anyway, and so we just existed, lived life. I remember so the day, oh, I don't even know how to go into this
Mm.
or if you remember it, but so it was Columbus Day, which is not a British holiday. So my kids had school, but my husband was off, which we
Mhm.
used to just take those days to go like have a lunch date or something. So we did that with the baby. She was about 6 weeks old. This was in October. We went and got some Halloween stuff for the kids at one of the stores out in New Market. Um, and so we got home with that, and everybody was super excited to. No, no, no. Let me backtrack. This was the day before I had fallen like we were sleeping. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning England time, which would have been about 10 p.m. in Louisiana, where I'm from. And I had a dream that my mother had died. I had a dream that she passed away. And I woke my husband up, and to this day, he's like, we've been together 15 years, and like, you don't dream, you don't, much less wake me up. Like, I'm that person that I have a dream and it like slips away every second. that you're awake. But this one I remembered, and it shook me. I woke him up. He just said, "You just worry about her. It's all okay." Like, he hugged me. I texted one of my friends who I knew would still be awake that I had a dream, and she's like, "Oh, rebuke that. Like, I have dreams like that too. It's scary." So I just went back to sleep. The next day was when the kids had school. He was off. We went to lunch. We even spoke about at lunch wow, that would be like really crazy. Like what would happen to my brother? That would be wild. Like we even talked about, it was nuts because we talked about it. And so then we get the kids from school, we go home, show them the Halloween stuff. It's just a normal night. And I was nursing the baby around 8 p.m. and I got a message from my aunt on Facebook Messenger. Well, she had called me and I was shirtless nursing my baby. So I was like, "I'll just call you back. Is everything okay?" And she said no. And I was okay. And so I called back and that's when I got the news, and it was about 1 p.m. there. So it was still daylight and they were still assessing everything. But yeah, to this day, we don't truly know, because she did have a seizure disorder. She had many autoimmune issues, which if you have autoimmune stuff, like it can be debilitating, lupus,
Yeah.
rheumatoid arthritis. So
How old was she when she passed?
48.
Wow, it's so young.
Yeah, she was 48. So yeah, I just was kind of in a state of shock. I didn't know what to do. We're overseas. My infant is 6 weeks old. The embassy has or the country we were living in had, do you remember they had like certain dates you could go get a passport?
Yeah.
Like birth dates, and they weren't even up to her birth date yet. And I was like, what do we? So for the first like probably 8 to 10 months, I was just in a fog.
Yeah.
My husband pulled it together and got us to the embassy. She got an emergency passport, but I was just a puddle, it felt like, for the longest. I didn't know what to do.
Were you able to go home for the funeral?
Yes,
Okay.
we did. The the military, got us home. He took emergency leave, and because my family didn't know what was even going to happen. Like, we're overseas, we're in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah.
So we did go home. My grandmother had wanted to wait, but I was like, I don't know how I'll do, like, reopening all these wounds in 6 or so months. So we just got it all, done, which is, you don't think about it when you attend funerals. I've attended funerals my whole life, but like, not my whole life, that sounds awkward.
But like you've been to
But
funerals, yeah.
I've been to funerals and but when it's someone very close to you, it's just a lot. It's like and my mother wasn't married, so I was next of kin for a lot of things, which shocked me because they're calling me and I'm like, I don't know, just call my grandma, like she knows how to do everything, and but it's all up to me, like if they have an adult child and they're not married. So they're sending me papers to sign for cremation and pick out this poem and what do you want her to say on her cards that they give out to people, what kind of songs, and I just remember it was really hard to just focus on anything at all.
Yeah, like completely overwhelming. Plus you have a newborn who's like
Yeah, you're also postpartum.
very
Postpartum
yeah.
in itself is a
Yeah.
storm of emotions and hormones. It's been this October will make 4 years, and it's still, there's days I wake up and it feels like yesterday.
Yeah.
But I'm very passionate about all of this and working through it and writing about it because I feel like my story has a lot of unique facets. I'm working through like that I didn't see her, like everybody saw the viewing and I had chosen not to because it felt weird, but now looking back, I'm like, FaceTime is just a video, and when you hang up, you hang up. It's not like I'm taking a photo of it or anything, And so, while that's probably a small percentage of people, I'm like, FaceTime, because you might regret it later. Like it's hard being far away when all of the big things are happening before you can get there. Um, so, and I'm also, I don't, I don't want this to come off wrong or hurtful to anybody, but I am from South Louisiana, where we glaze over a lot of things. She's in a better place.
Yeah.
God needed another angel. Um, you know, she's breeding somebody at the gates, and and it is just. And while I probably have been guilty of saying that to people, it's unhelpful.
Yeah. So now that you're on the other side, you're like, oh man, that didn't help.
Yeah.
That didn't help me at all. So
Yeah.
can you talk to me about what it's been like to, as a woman, losing your mom, but also you're also parenting small children and you're going through this grief transition. Like, what did that look like for you at the like that first 8 to 10 months of grief after your mom died? You said that was a blur. Can you remember like what it was like parenting small children while also going through like a huge loss?
Um, it was what it was. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna sit here and say it was hard or it was easy. It just was what it was. I tried to remember um that watching me navigate this could very well shape the way that my children navigate something huge in their
Mhm.
lives in the
Yeah.
future. Um, you know, they watched me grip to grounding techniques, and they watched me um I talk about her a lot. I kind of broke the mold because I let them watch me cry. I let them watch me be upset. They'd ask me what's wrong and I'd explain everything. Um, but you know, it's hard to like it just was what it was.
It was just life.
It was just life.
Hmm.
And even if I didn't handle it properly or how what might have been the best way, I always go back and say, and my whole journey is that sometimes it just is what it is.
Hmm.
So like to tell somebody else that it's all going to be okay when it possibly might not be, and they have to navigate that as well, like that doesn't do them any, that doesn't serve them at all.
Yeah.
Because sometimes there's not a reason that things happen. Um, you don't have to find a silver lining. Um, because I had recently had a talk with my kids. My son is very inquisitive, like he always has been. Um, question after question, rapid fire. Um, and I think I had said, like to comfort them, something like, well, typically we die, when we're very old. I can't remember what we were talking about, probably death. Um, he was into death there for a while, like a lot of questions about it, even before he passed
Isn't
away.
it also, it's like great and also awful when kids get like really interested
Yeah,
in these topics and you're like, I don't really want to talk about this, but I guess we're talking about it like
right,
over and over again.
right. I had remembered he was young, and I would tell him good night, and he'd be like, "Okay, I love you until I die, and then I'll be in your heart." And I'm like, why, just
Why?
good night. It's fine. Um, so I think I had said something, and then my mom goes and dies at 48, and so it kind of shook almost everything. It shook it for me, for them. Um, and so I don't know how else to say it, but it just is. And I
Mhm.
think society, sometimes our culture, the family you're brought up in might tell you that like, or some people have it worse. So don't be too upset, or it could be this way, or, you know, at least this, at least that, or the silver lining. And sometimes
Yeah.
there just is no silver lining.
I was gonna say, I hear you saying there's a lot of narratives coming into your head, and then you're like, nope, that didn't work for me. Nope, that doesn't work for me. And then finally, like what you settled on was this is just whatever I'm feeling today, or like whatever is happening in my heart or my life or my kid's life, like it's okay. It just is what it is. Whether you're feeling like you want to cry today, or your kids asking questions about death, or you're having to like revisit all these things you thought you knew about how people die when they're old or things like that. Like
Yeah.
all those platitudes didn't work for you. So you had to find You had to realize that just like the path you're on is the path you're on.
Yeah. And I think that was hard for me because I grew up, you know, I was raised Catholic. I did all the sacraments. I did all the the little traditions that, you grow up in. I went to Catholic school, and but then something happens in your life and it kind of shakes everything that
Hmm.
you thought you believed. And we don't my brain doesn't work, like I can't just have like blind faith that now that I've lost this very important person to me, that any place else is better than with her grandchildren,
Hmm.
her,
Or her daughter, yeah, or her
her
son.
daughter, teenage son. Like, I could never. So I just, and it's everybody's well meaning,
Hmm.
of course. It's at nobody's fault of their own. Everybody has well intentions, good intentions. It all comes from a place of wanting to help. But it was just freeing for me to just say, it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't
But
have to adopt one of those platitudes for yourself if it doesn't work for you.
yeah, and it can be hard. Um, I call it toxic positivity. And it's kind of been a passion of mine to kind of like break that down
Hmm.
in the last 3 years. And that can be hard because you're often seen as a pessimistic person. Um, or, sometimes I'm the most negative person in the room, it feels like. But it's important to me because I want to show my kids like what it looks like to really process emotions
Mm.
and not just say she's in a better place and shove it away for
Right.
later for
Right.
somebody else. No.
You're actually working through your pain so that it doesn't like get shoved down and show them like, I'm okay, I'm okay. Like you want to show them who you really are as a person.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because it doesn't they grow up and they're going to see who you are.
Yeah.
No matter how good you masked it or pretended to be something else or didn't fight in front of them, or like it's that's kind of been my, they've seen us fight, they've also seen us make up. They both know that my mother she wasn't perfect,
Mhm.
but nobody is. Um, and they watch me honor her. We get a cake every year for her birthday. I talk about her. Her pictures are all over my house. Because she didn't meet my younger two
Mhm.
children, but my 3-year-old somehow knows her. So for anybody out there who feels like someone might lose a memory of someone important to them or didn't even meet someone important to them who passed on, like if you talk about them enough, you can keep. They're essentially still. She's still alive in my house.
Yeah.
Um,
Her spirit is like they know her. She's an important part of
yeah,
your life.
she, they know stories about her. They can tell me stories about her. They'll ask me what my favorite story is sometimes. My son is just a little bit more as he's getting older. Still, like he's like, "What's this cake for?" And I'm like, "My mom." And he's like, "But she died." I'm like, "I know."
Yeah.
Kids can also remind us of that too. That it doesn't have to be frilly and fancy. It just is. Emotions just are what they are, and we wake up and move on another day.
Yeah.
And my son is a very good. He's on the spectrum, and he's a very good reminder of that. I
Yeah.
think you can
I
relate to.
yes. I think it's also good because it's like sometimes you think, okay, I want to grieve the right way, or I want to, do this right for my kids, or I want to do these like special reminders on my kid's birthday. And then your kid comes along and they're like, but she died. And you're like, yeah. And maybe it feels awkward, but you keep doing it and you keep showing up. And like when you're looking back, you think, my kids know who their grandma is. They can tell these stories. And it's because I keep showing up in my own life. I keep showing up with my emotions. I keep showing up with my grief and the happy stories and the hard stories and the pictures. Like that's all part of our messy, beautiful life and working through grief and hardship as in your motherhood journey.
Yeah, just being honest with yourself. Like there's times I'm working on it in therapy right now. Not because my therapist just called me out. Just like sometimes do you feel like you use grief as a way to pause life going on around you? I'm like, no.
You don't know me.
And she's like, well, and she gives like all these examples, um and so I'm like, okay. So I'm now trying to, there's a level of feeling sorry for myself sometimes, like I don't have, because I'm not in contact with my dad, so essentially I don't have parents. And a lot of my peers will have, two sets of parents on each side and grandparents to help and or give advice even. My grandmother was amazing, but she raised kids in the 70s. So when I had a baby in 2014, the times have changed, the advice has changed. So I'm working on just figuring out who I am. I know one of your questions in the email was what was it? Tell me who.
Tell me who you are on the other side of the story.
I don't know yet. And I kind of struggle with that because like I don't want to say I am who I am today because she passed away, but it happened.
Right.
And it shaped me, and I'm learning and growing from that. And so I don't truly know.
I think that's honest. I don't think we can't, that question is open-ended, because there's so many ways we can be. There's no one way we can be like, now I am this way because this happened in my life. This good thing or this bad thing or this death or this grief. Like this made me who I am today. And I think that it's just all part of our growing into ourselves.
Yeah, it's just life happening. And that's where I'm at right now. I could feel sorry for myself, or I'd have to go back on my therapy notes, but like I could find a way. She told me, find a way to live my life with the least amount of like dust as possible. Like like it's still there, but like joy and grief can coexist.
Yeah.
And that was another big lesson for me too.
That reminds me of like this special phrase that your mom sent you in a text. And I wonder if you can share that with us, because I know that's really important to you.
I did. I even made some like merchandise out of it. I want to do another design because I had gotten a tattoo with like some delicate flames. But you know how it is, like you take a break from stuff and then it ends up being more than a break. But after she passed away, I was scrolling through our WhatsApp message thread. And at the time when she said it, like she was always very metaphorical, and I would be like, okay, like whatever that means, mom. And she was asking me how I was feeling because I was pretty sick in the beginning of my third pregnancy. And I think I said, I'm feeling better, but I guess since I'm feeling so terrible, that means things are progressing well. I think I was about 8 or 9 weeks at that point. And she had sent me, some, you're doing good, XYZ. And then at the end, she said, I know you're tired, but stay on fire. And in the moment, I remember, I'm like, right, like, stay on fire, okay, like,
yeah.
And reading it after was like a moment for me. And I Googled it everywhere. I was like, she didn't come up with that herself. Like she saw it on TV somewhere or like in a magazine. There's no way. And I Googled it. Like there's got to be someone that said this, and I couldn't come up with anything. And and so I had a friend at the time who had like a t-shirt boutique business, and she had put one on a shirt, and for me, her daughter made the design, and then people started ordering it from her.
Oh.
from
That's
her,
so
and I was like,
special.
okay. It was. I was like, wait, people actually like. It was really just for me. Like I got a coffee mug and a shirt. But then, so once I got moved in Florida and processed my life, I did open up a shop, and like people on the internet, people off of TikTok, people I never even met before. I think I made like 100 sales in like a month.
That's amazing.
Like, okay. It was inspirational to me, but I think it acknowledges that life is just exhausting.
Yeah.
It doesn't diminish, struggles or hard times or just pure fatigue from just living. But just keep going.
Yeah. Stay on fire.
Yeah.
That's kind of like what you said about your grief. Like I know you're grieving, but stay on fire, don't lose your joy.
Yeah. And so that's kind of, I think if I could send one message to somebody, it's that early in my grief too, I felt like I was smiling too much. But like that's also who I am. Like, I was of course sad, but like those things can coexist. You can be happy and sad at the same time. And as much as society will tell you that that's not possible, it is.
Yeah.
I can love watching my daughter dance at her dance class for the first time, and then also be sad that like someone else is not here to see it. And it's about realizing that that's okay and being honest with yourself and accepting those emotions and not hating yourself because you're not just devastated all the time.
Yeah.
Because I think there's this sense of like, oh well, you don't look sad enough, so it must not
We're
have
not
been that
grieving right. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Any of these messages that come in, like from society or from our religious backgrounds or what even our own selves be like, why are you smiling too much? You need to be sadder. Like I think I think acceptance is like the real journey, you know, accepting whatever it is, the sadness or the happiness or the missing them or the grief, like that's part of the journey.
Yeah, and I try it with, it's helped, it's shaped me as a mother because my daughter will have some pretty big emotions, and while I want to tell her it's not that bad, it is to her,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just, life is life. And I think we spend so much time trying to make sense of it all, or trying to find a reason, or trying to find a silver lining, or trying to pull something good when sometimes there's nothing good.
Yeah.
And you have to learn how to navigate that sadness or don't navigate it. And then, I don't want to be the old grandma, like unloading all my stuff that I buried for years. Like, but I think times are changing, and, I recently read something that the opposite of joy is, the opposite of sadness is not joy. The opposite of sadness is love. And that really resonated with me a lot because I didn't need someone to tell me something good or better or something to make me feel better. I needed someone to say, I'm here. I'm sorry.
And
I
I
love
love you.
you.
Yeah.
Here's a pizza so you don't have
Yeah.
to feed your kids tonight. Those
Pizza
are all
is
pretty
love.
acceptable.
Yes.
If you don't know what to do, bring a pizza.
Yes.
Or toilet paper. Why did I forget toilet paper? Like such little things. Like if I have friends that go through hard times now, I just drop off like toilet paper.
You're like, you're gonna forget this, and I've got you, girl. I've
It's
got you.
bottom of your list, and it's very vital. Like, why is it at the bottom of our list? But it's so important. But you don't have to tell somebody something good or something to make them feel better. They just want to hear that you're there and that you love them, and that it's okay that they're feeling this way. So I think for so long we've been taught that the opposite of sadness is to just make someone happy, and it's just not.
Yeah.
It's not the way it works, and I think it's good to teach our children that as well.
Yeah, I love that. Caitlin, thank you so much for sharing your story about your mom and just sharing how honest you've been about navigating grief. And I just thank you for coming on here and for just sharing your heart.
Thank you for having this podcast because
Yeah.
it's so it's so validating to know that we're not all alone in this crazy hood.
Yes. All right. So I have one question to end our time. And it is, what is saving your life right now? And it can be something huge or it can be something like my morning coffee.
My coffee
Yes.
and therapy. If I can recommend anything, it's therapy.
That's good. Well,
Right.
where can we find you if we're looking to find you online or your shop? Because I definitely want to share those links with people.
At So I created at Grief Grace, and so it's Grief Grace and Waffles. It's a silly little name, but it's all the things that grounded me in that time. I was like, if you know me, um, at that time I was like obsessed with Kodiak waffles, and because I had gestational diabetes in my third pregnancy, and so that was like my go-to breakfast. And then, it became my like staple grounding thing. Like, I mean, I would like pack waffles in a freezer bag to like go visit our family, and everyone would think I'm crazy because I'm like toting all these. And it sounds silly until you need something to. I'm like, okay, if I have this can start me. So, grief, grace, and waffles, and I try to write. I write little snippets about grief, about motherhood, about just life. Eventually, I want to write more, maybe like a book of like short excerpts. I'm better at short little poems. But yeah, if you want to go follow along, sometimes I'll post a reel here and there. I need to get better at it. Um, but writing is really important to me because it helps me just process.
Mhm. Yeah, there's real value in that. And then I also share your shop where we can look for your
Oh yeah,
t-shirts
I
and
can send a link at my shop. It hasn't been. I launched it last year, but there's long sleeve shirts, short sleeve shirts, hoodies. I think I'm gonna do like a zip up hoodie soon. Everyone really loves the coffee mugs because they're deep and like they're not short. So yeah, thank you for having me and sharing my story.
yes, thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Motherhood Metamorphosis. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to this channel so you never miss an episode. Next, tell your friends. Podcasts are a slow growth type of social media, so promo works best when it's from person to person. If you know another mom who's in the goop right now, send her a text of encouragement and the link to the episode that is speaking to your heart right now. If you have a story about your own matrescence, the physical, emotional, hormonal, and social transition that occurs when someone becomes a mother, please leave a comment below. I want this channel to be a place where women can build community about the challenges and joys of their own motherhood metamorphosis. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope it encouraged you and gave you some good food for thought. If you ever have any questions, comments, or you'd like to reach out to me personally, you can email me at brittanyaming@gmail.com.
My son, he changed my Google picture to like something off of Roblox, and I can't figure out how to change it. So
That's great. I love that.
my dogs are laying on her blanket, and she
Oh,
can't pull it.
how dare they?
I know.